What a privilege to be here at the City of Ideas. I just want to thank Ricardo Salinas and Andres Romer for taking the risk of inviting me to be here with you these moments. I'm not a really natural social person. Maybe you can understand that. I'm an extremely introverted person, and for a long time, I felt like I struggled with social anxiety disorder, but I realized it wasn't that. I'm just not good with people. And I had an opportunity years ago to be at a place like this, and it's called TED, and we were in Arusha, Tanzania, and I'd waited for so many years to get into this environment where all these brilliant minds came together to share ideas and have life-giving conversations, but I knew that my inability to make immediate social contact was going to be a real liability for me. So I take the shuttle to the event in Arusha, and my son and my daughter, Anna and Mariah, are on the phone coaching me, helping me know how to connect to humans. And on the phone, as I walk into the event, my son says something like, "Dad, look for someone who looks like they need a friend more than you do." And my daughter said, "Dad, make sure you make eye contact. Make eye contact." And eye contact's a little tricky because if you don't make enough eye contact, they don't catch it. And if you make too much, it's a little creepy. And so I was trying to figure this whole thing out. And then finally, I decided I'm going to look for someone with the kindest face in the room. Because one thing I know about kind people is that even if they don't want to talk to you, they will talk to you. And so I looked around and I saw this woman, and she was probably the only person there who was my age or older. I'm 61, and everyone else looked like they were 12. And I was in the room, and I saw this woman, and she was getting in line to get food. And so I got right behind her, and I said, "Hi, my name is Erwin McManus." And she told me her name, and I said, "This is my first TED." And she said it was her first TED. And I said, "Do you have anyone to eat with?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Would you like to eat together?" She said, "Yes." And I was so excited, human contact. And we sat down at a table, and 8 other people joined us almost immediately. And we began having a conversation, but it was one of those conversations. Have you ever talked to someone that no matter what you talk about, they talk about whatever they want to talk about? You know what I mean? You could be talking about politics or sports or family, and they always go back to the same subject every single time. Well, it was like that with her. I mean, she was amazing. She was brilliant. She was so fascinating. But no matter what I said, she would talk about chimpanzees. And I was a little thrown off because I was talking about politics, and she said, chimpanzees have a political system. And then I talk about families. Well, chimpanzees have family structures. And no matter what I talked about, she would talk about chimpanzees. And after about 5 minutes, I had used all the material that I had about chimpanzees, so I didn't really know what to do. After about an hour, I looked at her and I said, "Jane, can I ask you a question?" And it occurred to me there are only 2 people in the world that I could ever imagine would know this much about chimpanzees. And they're both named Jane. One was married to Tarzan, and I didn't think that would be her. And the other is a woman named Jane Goodall. And I said, "Are you Jane Goodall?" And she said, "Of course I am." And I said, "That explains the entire chimpanzee thing." And this happened to every conversation I had. Every single person seemed to have a species. They all had their area of expertise. And have you ever been in a room that you just knew you did not belong in? Like this one? Like I'm up here with brilliant minds. I should be representing broken minds, but that's okay. I'm glad I'm here. And after going to 2, 3, 4, 5 different TEDs, every time they'd ask the same thing: "What do you do?" Well, I didn't really know what to say what I did because I never really did anything better than anyone else. So I didn't want to say I was a filmmaker because I'm sure Spielberg was there. And I didn't want to say I'm a fashion designer because I'm sure Tom Ford was there. I didn't want to say I'm a writer because I'm sure Stephen King was there. So I didn't have a lot of options. And so I just said I do a lot of things, but I don't do anything well. And then every time I said that, they would say, "Oh, you're a writer." And so I thought, okay, it's going to be my career then. And I went home and I told my wife, I need a species. I cannot go back without a species, and I'm too old to start from scratch. I need a species I've studied without actually knowing I studied it. And then it hit me. I've been studying humans all of my life. And I love so many different species, but humans are my favorite species. I've always studied you as an outsider, and I have found that humans are so extraordinary, and I started asking the question, what makes humans different than every other species? Because you can see human characteristics in so many different species. And so there are things like empathy or relationship or organization or design that you can see in every species. You can say, well, there's a characteristic we thought was uniquely human, but it's not. So I'm going to take a quick survey here just for a moment, if I could. I know I'm one of the most creative events in the world, and I know that this room is a very exclusive room, and so I just want to see if the survey comes out differently than it does in other places in the world. If you're here and you would say, I am a creative genius, I know it's going to be a little awkward because you're not supposed to say that about yourself, but if you know, you say, I am a creative genius, I just want you to raise your hand right now. Okay, I am a creative genius. All right, more than I usually see, but not that many. We're not getting over 15% right now, which is very disappointing to be at the city of ideas. But let me try a different question, okay? Let me try. How many would say that you are a linguistic savant? And if you don't understand savant, it's okay. All right, how many would say, I'm a linguistic savant? Raise your hand. Oh, wow, fewer, maybe less than 1% of the room would say you're a linguistic savant. Now, here's the dilemma. All right, how many of you speak Spanish fluently? ¿Cuántos aquí hablan español? ¿Todos? Qué bien. Now, how many of you speak English fluently? Raise your hand. Wow, quite a few of you. How many of you speak another language fluently? Raise your hand. Wow, this is amazing. But you're not a linguistic savant. And every one of you, whatever your primary language is, my first language was Spanish. I learned Spanish when I was around 2 years old. I didn't learn Spanish when I was in college. I didn't learn Spanish when I was in high school. I learned Spanish before I could eat by myself, walk by myself, and take care of myself. You learned your first language when you were incapable of making a productive contribution to the world. You learned how to speak your first language before you could make it to the bathroom by yourself, feed yourself, walk yourself. You learned one of the most complicated languages in the world when you were 2. So even if you don't think you're a linguistic savant now, you were a linguistic savant when you were born. So what happened? Now, is it possible that if you were a linguistic savant when you were 2, that you were also a creative genius when you were 2? That in fact, there is more in you than you know. And this is what I want to propose to you today, that we need to understand what it means to be human, because if you don't understand the resource you have available to you, you will neglect it all of your life. Every human being is a creative genius. And every human being is a linguistic savant. If they'd moved you to Tokyo, you would have spoken Japanese. If they had moved you to Germany, you would have spoken German. If they had moved you to the Philippines, you would have spoken Tagalog. If they had moved you to England, you would finally learn how to speak English. Whatever language you were engaged with, exposed to, you would have picked up that language when you were 3, 4, 5, as if it were just natural. Is it possible the things that are actually supposed to be most natural for us humans feels unnatural as we become adults? Because we replace creativity with standardization. We focus, instead of unleashing human uniqueness, we focus on teaching our children survival skills and how to conform to the expectations of others. What is it that makes humans uniquely human? I want to propose to you that what humans can do that no other species can do is that humans can materialize the invisible. That sounds like a superpower, doesn't it? Think about this right now. You can actually materialize the invisible. The way you do that is you have an idea. Here we are, the city of ideas. Out of the city can actually come a movement. Every human being has this unique capacity to see what does not exist. No other species can do this. A human being can imagine a future that does not exist and create it. Ricardo and Andres had an idea called the City of Ideas. And before it was ever anything material, before it could ever be seen or touched or experienced, it was a reality inside of their imagination. And the human imagination is the design center for the future. I mean, think about other species. I spend so much time contemplating what it would be like to be something else. Silkworms. I find silkworms to be fascinating because I was in the fashion industry, and we use silk to make material. But a silkworm can never have a career change. A silkworm can never wake up one morning saying, I'm done making silk. I want to work with denim. There's no changing their capacity to create. Beavers create dams. And there's never going to be another occupation for a beaver. Every beaver that will ever live for every generation to come will have one career choice: build dams. But humans can actually imagine a self that they are not and become that self. Humans can imagine a life that does not exist and step into that life. Humans can imagine a world that we've never known and create that world. Humans can see a future that has not yet come into existence and create that future. Humans are the most unique species on this planet. And every single human being has the capacity to create. And we need to stop seeing humans as simply material to be used, but a resource to be unlocked and unleashed. Humanity's best future exists in the imagination of a child right now. But one of the peculiar things about us as humans is that our imagination can be our greatest resource or our greatest detriment. Some of you know what it's like to be haunted by a dark and destructive imagination. I was born in San Salvador, and when my mom was very, very young, she had me and my brother, and her marriage didn't work out, and she came to the United States and left us there with our grandparents for the first season of our life. And so I grew up never knowing my father and always feeling a little disconnected from my mother, and I never knew who I was. My name is Erwin McManus, but that's not my name, it's an alias. I wasn't born Erwin or McManus. My only real name is Raphael, and that's misspelled because I didn't know how to spell it. My last name is Irish. My first name is German. I'm not Irish or German. I have spent my entire life trying to figure out who I am. And so by the time I was 12 years old, I was in a psychiatric chair. I was an overachiever in dysfunction. And I remember when I walked into the living room one day, I was around 10, 11 years old. I heard my mom and stepdad talking about sending me to a psychiatrist. And I said, what are you guys talking about? They said, well, what are you doing awake? I said, no, I heard you. You're talking about me. I said, well, honey, we just thought maybe we could help you by sending you to a doctor. And I said, you want to send me to a psychiatrist? I said, well, we just thought it might help. I said, I don't need to go to a psychiatrist. And I started yelling, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. And I had my first moment of self-awareness. I realized I looked completely crazy. And so I stopped. And they were there trying to step back and said, you don't have to go, you don't have to go, you don't have to go. And I said, no, I want to go. I want to know if I'm crazy. But the problem with being crazy is if you are crazy, you don't know it. But because my imagination was formed with hurt and bitterness and anger, all I could do was create a negative world. I was speaking in the lobby one day after one of the TED moments, and I was talking to the founder of the Center for Global Consciousness, and he said, if humanity is ever going to become what we should become, we need to eliminate all feeling. I said, all feeling? He said, yes. I said, when you say feeling, do you even mean love? He goes, yes, we need to eliminate love. To become who we are as humans, we need to eliminate all feeling. But then he said, it's more than that. Because we need to eliminate all thought. I said, when you say eliminate all thought, do you mean imagination as well? He said, yes. I said, no. Give me love and imagination, and I can change the world. There's this odd phenomenon called phantom pain. If you lose a leg in a war, you feel that pain there for years, but the leg is gone. If you lose an arm, you feel that pain, but it's gone. Phantom pain only exists when you've lost something that was once yours. We're here in this room, and we imagine a world with peace, but we've never known peace. We imagine a world with justice, but all we've known is injustice. We imagine a world where there is no violence, but all we've ever known is violence. But it's because ideals are the phantom pain of the soul. And human beings know something was lost along the way. We imagine a world where everyone has hope. We imagine a world where everyone has peace. We imagine a world where everyone has justice, where everyone is loved, where everyone has a home, where everyone has a future. And it's because we can see what does not yet exist. And I want to challenge all of us here today. The future awaits the person with the courage to create it. Si olvidas todo lo que yo he dicho, No olvides esto. El futuro espera a la persona que tiene el valor para crearlo. Thank you.